Good morning. Yesterday in Parliament we had an update on the COVID inquiry and some of the early findings. In particular, it's shown that the governments right across the UK were ill prepared for a pandemic. Of course, the COVID pandemic itself wasn't predictable, but it's almost inevitable that a pandemic at some time was going to come. Whether it's COVID or not is a different matter. And of course there'll also probably be one coming at some point in the future, hopefully not too soon. So part of the government's response, I was pleased to hear that they're going to run a simulation exercise early in the year to test how the government would respond to a second pandemic in the near future. And the point I made in my response to that was that the Scottish Government did this kind of simulation exercise in the past before the pandemic and completely failed to act on the conclusions. So I was pleased to get confirmation that when we do the simulation later this year, the results of that will be reported to Parliament and there will be some scrutiny of how the conclusions are acted upon. In front of me here is the National COVID Memorial Wall. And I also made the point that it's absolutely right that it sites just across the river from Parliament as a reminder of what happens when governments get things wrong. Whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great day, and try to find a bit of time today to think about all the people who were lost in the pandemic.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Deputy Speaker, I pass the National COVID Memorial Wall every day on my way to this place, and this inquiry is a reminder of what happens when governments get things wrong. Yeah. I absolutely welcome the announcement of a national pandemic response exercise later this year, but the inquiry has already found that a similar exercise took place in Scotland under the control of the Scottish Government before the pandemic, and it failed to implement the conclusions from that exercise. Can the Minister reassure us that any outcomes from such exercise will be reported to this House and we will have oversight of the implementation of any recommendations? Secondly, I know it's outside the remit of the Minister's statement, but can he give us an update on the recovery of any money lost to dodgy contracts to the mates of the previous government? Thank you.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend. Let me repeat the praise I gave to the volunteers who maintain the COVID Memorial Wall. Honourable members may not be aware, when they look at those red hearts, that over time they fade, and they fade to pink. And the reason that they are kept red is there are a group of volunteers down there overpainting the hearts to make sure that that wall doesn't fade away, and that the memory of the names recorded doesn't fade away. The conclusions of the national pandemic exercise will be reported, and predictions are a dangerous game, but let me make one. There will be things that go wrong. There will be shortfalls that will be exposed. Not everything will go right, but that's part of the purpose of doing an exercise like this. So I'm happy to assure him about that in terms of learning from it and the conclusions.